Hello, hi, I'm Daniel Sullivan, and you're here for an online class with me over the next 7 weeks that I think is going to be a pretty cool adventure, or it has been in the past. Specifically, we're going to engage, and run through this course, and hopefully it's a meaningful learning experience for you. What I'm going to do in this short video, and I do mean short, is to give you an overview of why this class actually exists. That is, it's got a very strange title, namely Globalization, Issues, Actors, Decisions, and You, which sounds a little confusing, which I concede, but nonetheless there is a purpose and a meaning to that message that I'll try to convey to you. But to do so, I'm going to give you a model in the next 5 to 7 minutes that puts into perspective what's going to happen to you intellectually over the course of this class. The model takes its cue from a quote from McKinsey & Company, a leading, if not the premier, global management company in the world. And they did some research on international business executives, those who were successful and those who were not. And they came up with a rather interesting observation. First, and I'll just read this off to you. They said successful global market pioneers have a particular mindset. When you look behind the success stories of leading globalizers, you'll find companies that have learned how to think differently from the herd. Likewise, they seek out different information, they process it in different ways, they come to different conclusions, and they make different decisions. Doing that is a big challenge, and if you pull it off, where others see threats and complexities, they see opportunity, or more poetically, McKinsey concludes by noting that where others see a barren landscape, they see a cornucopia of choices. And this chart right here, this profile, quote, so forth and so on, is the basis for this class intellectually and even programmatically. Let me walk you through it and give you a sense of what's going to happen as the class unfolds and as you move through the material. If we break this quote down, there's really the first part here is the purpose. And that's really why you're here in this class, in my estimation, and probably why you're in this program as well. You're here to think differently for everybody else. Think differently is a pretty broad challenge, and there's really no one way to specify how one does so. Quite honestly, there's many ways. And so here is a quick profile of different ways to conceptualize the notion of think differently, period. There is the various books out there that talk about it. There's the pictorial up here with respect to the single balloon escaping from the clutches of the fold. And there's also Stephen Jobs in the lower corner who came up with the notion, think different, as the basis to revitalize Apple, which was then nearing bankruptcy, into a powerhouse that's now the world's most prominent corporation, arguably. And he actually took it to another extreme. Rather than correctly say think differently, which is the way you would modify a verb, he actually said we're going to think different in order to actually think differently about how to say the term think differently. So now we have think different as part of the Apple lexicon. But in any event, we're going to try to give you the basis to improve, sharpen, refine your ability to think differently through the course that you're about to begin. So, quickly, one quick question is, the herd is really your motivation on the flip side. So consequently, if you think about it this way, the purpose is an opportunity for you to change your world in a great way. There's also, likewise, the threat. And the threat is what we call the herd. So here we have the context for this course, in which there are different worlds out there, in which people play different games, and as a consequence of that, put a lot of pressure upon you, as well as me, as well as anyone with an ambition to succeed and live a prosperous, peaceful life, to think differently. So the herd is various ways to conceptualize it. Up here, we have a world populated by a lot of people. We also have, down in the lower corner, a rather powerful photograph, essentially right here, where we have a picture of a job fair in China, as well as eager young students in India hustling to make a difference to improve their world. That is part of the physical terrestrial herd that populates this globe. Right now there's about 7.5 billion people on this planet, and probably 5 billion are looking for jobs, careers to make their life better. And they are, with no insult intended, the herd. Likewise, we have over here The increasingly cybernetic digital threat of the herd, namely artificial intelligence and computers. Here we have artificial intelligence will outperform most of what we can do as humans in the next 10 years. And likewise, even more perhaps ominous, in a kind of a dystopian way, predictions are that by the year 2049, a $1,000 computer will have the computational ability greater than the entire human race. So consequently, we have a situation where the herd is both terrestrially based, 7.5 billion people looking for a better life, and we have a digital herd, namely computers powered by automation, artificial intelligence, and the like, that increasingly encroach upon the workplace. So the herd is a powerful context point to motivate you and me to do our best to escape the herd and find ways to do so by thinking differently. Now, how do we help you do that? Well, we give you a variety of content that covers a lot of different issues that positions you to develop the skills, knowledge, and abilities to think differently. So these are some of the highlights. The content is laid out in the website, the Canvas site that supports the class. There are 6 primary modules along with 1 startup module. The startup module is self-assessment, where you'll identify a baseline profile of yourself professionally and personally to give yourself a sense of where you're going. Likewise, we'll cover topics such as megatrends, future of work, KSAs of the future. KSAs is shorthand for knowledge, skills, and abilities. Fourth Industrial Revolution, terrestrial globalization, remember the 7.5 billion people, and digital globalization, remember the untold millions of systems, computers, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence systems, automation, and so forth and so on, that are going to redefine the structure of the workplace and possibly the nature of life as we know it. Now, that's a lot of topics, and you're probably saying that's a lot of stuff. There is a method to the madness, and that method looks something like this. Here we have the layout of the class, which I'll cover later in a different video profile that discusses more specifically why this profile exists this way. But you're going to study catalysts, consequences, perspective, namely your perspective, context, and choice, to identify ways to position yourself to think differently about the world. As you see up here in the upper left-hand corner, we have megatrends, which we'll start the class off with. There'll also be workplace of the future and KSAs of your future, which feed into the context, the fourth industrial revolution. The preceding industrial revolutions always and everywhere changed the nature of work and professional paths fundamentally. Likewise with the fourth industrial revolution too. It'll also redefine what you and I can do to create value and even more importantly sustain our value creation abilities. The perspective is you, as you see here, the face atop the globe, which I find to be kind of eerily fascinating, but which I think captures this class quite dramatically in the sense of that's you or me with our global awareness, global outlook, and global orientation, making sense of the world. Likewise, we also have the 2 context points. We have terrestrial and we have the digital context. And theoretically, they all feed into ultimately the point of why I believe you're in this course as well as this program, and that is to find a productive, prosperous career that you can, I guess, enjoy and sustain for the rest of your life. Ways that are great, fun, and entertaining. So that's the context for the course, and that's the content for the course. Now, let's look at the next part of the quote. The global market pioneers process it in a different way, and that's the important part of this class. Information is always available to you, and your task is to be able to process it in a different sort of way. Now, how we process it in a different sort of way is really the core of this course. You're going to process this course through your VMOSA. And the VMOSA is kind of a funny term when you first hear it, but actually it's an acronym for vision, mission, objectives, strategy, and action plan. And over the course of this class, you're going to develop a remarkably compelling, cool profile of your own personal VMOSA. And that's going to be the basis for interpreting the content of the course, to calibrate the context of the course, and to position you to improve your ability to think differently. Now, the VMOSA framework looks something like this. You have, again, the vision, which is a superordinate vision of your aspiration and inspiration, your mission, where you define your purpose, objectives, delineating how you're going to turn your vision and mission into reality, your strategy, where you determine the path to accomplish your objectives, and then your action plan, your detailed, practical, systematic, and precise actions you're going to take to position yourself to move right back up to achieve your vision ultimately and ideally sooner than later. How will you do this? That's a very good question. You're probably wondering, okay, how do I make this all happen? I'm going to help you by giving you a platform to make it happen. And what you'll get is a series of templates as part of the course. And your job will be to simply walk through the templates, complete them as you see fit, given your interpretation of your world and the materials that make up your world, and then cohesively, coherently, insightfully, imaginatively, and perhaps a bit brilliantly as well, make it all work. So, for example, your vision template, which you have access to quite quickly once the class gets going, looks like this. That's basically about 35 slides. And over the course of the class, you're going to complete those 35 slides. There's another 100 or so slides that comprise the remaining part of your mission, objectives, strategy, and action plan. Once done, in 7 weeks, you'll have this master blueprint of your life and your world captured within the context of your Vimosa, which will identify how you believe you're going to think differently about the world. And consequently, it'll be a remarkable project for you to engage, a remarkable project for you to finish, and once done, a remarkable template to guide your life. Okay? If we go back to the content of the course, you're probably wondering, how does this all make sense? Well, there you go. The Vimosa dovetails with the course of the class. Sorry, that was a mistake. You have a vision, mission, objective, strategy, action plan, Vimosa. And that's your course right there, in a bit scary, but also I think a bit intriguing fashion, where you take the content of the course, organize it by flow, and then integrate that content within the course of your vision, mission, objectives, strategy, action plan, and Vimosa. And that is why we use the Vimosa. It's going to ask you, actually kind of require you, to process information in a different way. And that different way is not terribly different, but it's a very powerful pathway to make it happen. Likewise, besides just for this class, as you go through your business career, more than likely you'll be involved in activities that ask you to develop your vision, mission, objective, strategy, and action plan, either for your group, your division, perhaps your company. So you'll learn how to do so with respect to this class in terms of you. But the skills that you pick up, the knowledge you master, and the abilities you develop to do so will also carry forth to other parts of your business career in a very dramatic, direct way. If you make this all happen, which you will, and people have done so quite successfully, you'll get to the next part of the equation, which is basically you'll come up with different conclusions about how you make sense of your world and how you're going to play in that world. And that's your advantage. That's the payoff, shall we say, about making this class work. Is you'll basically process information, different information. You'll then also come to different conclusions. And this is where it gets a bit interesting as well. Each of you is very individualistically unique with career ambitions, professional paths, skill sets, knowledge, proficiencies, and abilities. And far be it from me to prescribe how you should play the game. That's your call. My job is simply to help you improve the accuracy of your call. So therefore, think about it for just a moment. As you'll see over the course of the class, there are lots of different career paths out there. This is just a small sample of them. We could have someone in the class who wishes to be an entrepreneur locally or globally. There may be someone in the class who wants to work for a global organization such as CSC up in Wilmington, Delaware, Amazon, wherever they happen to be as they expand their empire, or just simply the Delaware Port Authority. You could also want to work for a think tank or a policy analyst position somewhere, or a supranational organization like the World Bank or United Nations. Or you might just have an interesting idea that's unique to you that you want to turn into an actual professional path. You're going to do so in your own unique, individualized way, by converting your Vimosa into a way that profiles that path quite insightfully, quite imaginatively, and quite practically. And so consequently, that's the advantage, is you'll come to different conclusions. You might say, I wish to do this, but now that I've investigated who I am and where I wish to go, that's not perhaps the most ideal path to travel. I may wish to do this instead, through the discovery process of processing different information in different ways. And you may identify a new career ambition, you might clarify a professional path, you might come up with a brand new way to think about where you're going with your life in the global environment called the world. Okay, so that's the advantage. The payoff for doing all this, besides those great things already, which I think are really quite compellingly cool, is basically the outcome. You're going to make different decisions about who you are and where you're going. And that decision is why you're probably in this class as well as in this program. And so therefore, think about it this way. You may, as you see in this image here, again, be that childlike face with the globe blazing forth. Your choice might be to simply choose, I wish to go terrestrially based. And I'm going to emphasize the career paths that develop terrestrial globalization capabilities. I want to worry about locations and languages. I want to work with people in a very direct way. That will be how you're able to clarify and perhaps make a different decision. Alternatively, you may wish to say, I'm going to go digital. Okay, I really want to go with the internet, technology, artificial intelligence, et cetera, and my career path now supports that. You may wish to do a blend, which is not uncommon, and quite likely most people find themselves in that particular melange somehow, some way. But whatever you do, theoretically, you'll be able to do so by virtue of clarifying your decisions by thinking differently about them, and then quite arguably and quite possibly at the end of the class have a different decision about who you are and where you're going. The payoff for this is rather dramatic, and this is where it gets a little bit more poetically, perhaps pictorially differentiated. The payoff is that where others see threats and complexity, you see opportunity. And trust me, I'm quite realistic, if not somewhat cynical about life, given the challenge people face on a day-to-day basis to make this thing work. And so therefore, it's really quite easy to look out there and see this massive wave of machines and people all competing for a better life. Also, to see the degree of challenge built into developing competencies, developing knowledge that keeps you current and moving forward, all in a world that's perhaps becoming a bit globalized, increasingly so at an intensifying rate, that puts up all sorts of interesting challenges for us to navigate. Okay, so therefore, it's easy to say, F it, I'm done. I really want to worry about none of this, and I'm going to choose Walden's Pond as my recourse. Alternatively, the trick is to see opportunity out there. There is immense opportunity out there, almost biblically framed in terms of what people can do to change the world. One small idea has the potential and power to change our lives and to change our world fundamentally, and that's a pretty cool opportunity. So if we do this, and I believe in this quite strongly after a long career of watching this happen on an individual basis as well as a collective basis and seeing students make this happen in their own particular way, if we basically help you find a way to think differently from the herd, which is always out there and always expanding, if you seek out different information, which you'll find in the content of this class, you process it in a different way through your Vimosa, and you come to different conclusions that support different decisions, you have the potential to see where others see threats and complexity, you see opportunity. Or perhaps put like this, the world can be a really messy place, as we're all quite familiar with. It can look jumbled like this big, chaotic structure of string. And most people see that and say, okay, I think we're done here. There's really no way to untangle that in a productive, prosperous way, and therefore I need to accept it and just simply see the complexity. And with no offense to the herd, most people more than likely are inclined to see that particular situation. Alternatively, you can see, as I believe people who see opportunities see when they see that big ball of messy string, they see a really cool, intricate network that makes sense to them. They see things that other people don't. And by seeing those things, they're able to make choices that support a powerful platform to change their world and to change the world. So, or even more poetically, again, others see a barren landscape, and you, by virtue of this class, your motivation and your interest, you see a cornucopia of choices. In case you're curious about what a cornucopia might look like, it's the classic Thanksgiving symbol of an endless degree of choices, all cool looking and all tasty looking in their own particular way. And so you, through the process of this class, are able to think differently in ways that enable you to see not a barren landscape where you're waiting for Mad Max people to start showing up and doing what Mad Max people do in the barren landscape. You see a cornucopia of choices where there's good times for all. So, in summation, this is your class. Okay? Let me get out of the screen for a second. I've designed this class to basically make this all happen. And consequently, if you make it happen, and I believe you should, it's your call, it's your choice, it's your consequence. And I've given you a great deal of latitude and leeway to make all sorts of things happen in all sorts of different ways. And by doing so, you're going to come up with a way that I think McKinsey has found, and I have observed, and others have reported as well, supports the basis for people to be successful in this world called business. And you, at the end of this class, through this massive, crazy process, will, I think, probably, more than likely, find ways to think differently and therefore be able to engage globalization, whether it be issues, actors, decisions, from your perspective in a way that makes sense for you. Hopefully, this makes a bit more sense of the class. But again, always keep in the back of your mind, even up to the forefront of your mind, the point of the class is to give you the power and the platform to think differently. Cool? Great. Great adventure? Sure. Fun time? Absolutely. Hard work? Sure, absolutely. But here's the cool part about that equation. It's all about you. I will give you the platform to find out who you are professionally and even a bit personally going forward into this world called global business. Thank you, guys.